It's going to be tight, but it's going to be important to have that final kick, I think, as well. And a lot of people probably going to feel they want to risk it, like it's an Olympic game. So you will see that people will hang on for dear life for as long as possible and hope for some sort of special things going to happen to them for the last final 5K. So you will see people probably blew up a little bit more. People will take a little bit more risks, and I guess there will always be some favorites who will sort of crack under pressure in the game. So yeah, it's quite open, I would say.
The Norwegian method.
I'm KB, Kristian Blummenfelt, Olympic and 3-time world champion.
I'm Dr. David Lippman, a health and human performance specialist, and welcome to the Norwegian Method podcast.
The Norwegian Method.
Thanks to Utilisation for sponsoring the episode. We are using Utilisation in training, in field, out on training camps, as well in the pool, in the lab, to get a better understanding of how the training we're doing is affecting the fitness we are having, and to understand the energy system better in order to reach peak human performance. It's been crucial to use Utilisation in order to be able to swap from short distance over to full distance Ironman and back again to short distance, in order to understand how the energy system have been changed. We're also using Utilisation to get a better understanding of a resting metabolic rate and to understand the energy cost of the calories over total training volume after weeks, months and years of training, and to get a better understanding of the training budget that we are having.
Welcome back to the Norwegian Method podcast, and joining me today is Kristian Blummenfelt. Welcome back, mate.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Bergen.
Thank you.
For the first time, I think.
No, second time.
Yeah, okay.
I came up to record
Olav.
with Olav, yeah. So I didn't spend much time in Bergen. I was mostly up where he lives, and I won't even try and say where he lives. I can't pronounce it properly, but it's lovely up there, and then spent a night down here. So first time properly in Bergen. We're showing our cameraman around last night, and yeah, it was nice.
Like on days like this, when the weather is not too bad, and it's a pretty beautiful city.
Yeah, well, yesterday the weather was good. Had sun, went for a run in the sun. It was lovely. And I wanted to get onto that. I've heard you say before, you don't say we're from Norway, we say we're from Bergen. What does that mean? Like, tell me a bit more about that.
I think it's... Yeah, so it is a thing we're having here in Bergen, that like, you're sort of proud of where you're coming from, and I guess it's something with confident and self-belief, and maybe a little bit more vocal than rest of the country. So yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm from Bergen.
Yeah, I like it. And how does that manifest in day-to-day life here? Because you know, we talk about your sporting thing, and you say, listen, I'm from Bergen and this is why I am the way I am, but when it comes to day-to-day life here, how is that different? How is Bergen different to, say, Oslo or somewhere else in Norway?
Well, first of all, we have way more rainy weather. Like this is like the rainy capital of Norway. Like it rains 2/3 of the year. So I think just to deal with that and like doing the training, I think it's hardening you up more than just training or growing up in sunshine and nice weather. So I think, yeah, we have beautiful nature around. We have big mountains. We have weather. We have wind. We have rain. We have everything. And I think that's harden you up.
Yeah. You seem to really identify with that. When I talked to you about time in Sierra Nevada, you talked about how stoic the sort of surroundings were. You talked about days of training in bad weather before. That seems to be something that you like to put away in your, say, bank, to go like, you know, I've trained really hard. It's been really hard in this weather, and that makes me harder and better. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's something beautiful. Like, of course, like I prefer sunny 25 degrees and blue skies, but also you have something beautiful when it's like dripping down and like it's foggy, and you sort of feel like you are out there by yourself, and you can see like you almost have the road by yourself, and you feel that this work you're putting in is something that not everyone is doing. Like you feel that this is like an extra like session that you're taking in, that the people you're racing against doesn't do. And I think that's hardening you up more. And the same, like when you're doing those freezing cold session where you're just sort of like halfway in, like you're starting like to, like losing the feeling of your fingers, and like to just, I wouldn't say it's a beautiful feeling, but sort of it's a mental session as well to just to get through. And I think that's gives you an edge as well. Like it's another adaptation.
Yeah. And let's talk a bit about your shirt. We talked about your shirt before. I love it. So it's one of the ones from your bike sponsor, I believe.
Yep.
And it has Hurts More to Lose, which is on your stem as well, isn't it?
Yep. So this is my Calyx jersey. I got it when I were in a event in Yokohama last year. And here we have a Japanese written Makiru ga tsurai. I think it was right. Makiru ga tsurai, which is it hurts more to lose in Japanese.
I love that. Let's talk a bit about that then. You've just come back from Yokohama and Cagliari, right? So last time we spoke to you, you were just before having gone to race those, talking about the form is good. Now you wanted to test yourself and see how it goes. So where are we at?
Yes, now I don't know where we are. Like I was hoping that Yokohama would go better. Like the goal from last year to this year was to improve the swim and the run, and I've been able to sort of bridge up the gap more on the swim. So I'm like now, both of those two races I were up in the like early on the first pack on the bike, and came off the bike in the like with the leaders in Yokohama.
Mm-hmm.
But there I was just like I was like just a gear too slow on the run, so I was sort of wasn't even able to stay on that in that pack fighting for the podium. I was sort of losing that pack halfway through on the run, and I was ending up being 50 seconds too slow on the run. Sort of the same gap I had back in last year, and that was 30 seconds or something slower than what I did back in 2021 before the games. So that was disappointing. And in between Yokohama and Cagliari, we had 2 weeks of training, and we tried to sort of put in extra track sessions and sort of just to do something with the run fitness. And I felt I was responding well on the training, and I felt actually more ready going into Cagliari than what I did in Yokohama. And I had a good swim in Cagliari, even though it was a beach start, which I don't know why, but I haven't figured out how to run on the beach. Like, okay. It's not natural to sort of bounce like the Aussies are doing, or like people growing up next to the beach. Like you can see here, we have rocks, we don't have beach.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe the next training camp needs to be in Australia.
Yeah. And so yeah, I was sort of same distance up to the front. I was like near the first group on the swim as well in Cagliari, even though it was a beach start and exit, and also exit and that. And it was rainy. I was then sort of near the front and sort of felt in control, even though I did have way too much pressure in my tires, because I think I got sealant into the valve.
Oh, no. Before
the race. It was like drying, so I couldn't take down the pressure before the start, as I realized it would be rainy. So I was riding there with a bit too much pressure, and I felt it was like too slippery, and I sort of my rear wheel like slipped twice in the first 10 or 12k, and then after like 16, 17k I got a flat tire, and like looking ahead, and then there's a wheel station, because I didn't really pay attention at the briefing where the neutral wheel station were. So, but luckily it was just ahead of me, so I managed to swap a wheel. Lost, obviously the first pack. The second pack came around or flew by, and then I was riding the rest of the race basically by myself between second and third pack. Got a little bit company by a Canadian guy who also crashed for the last lap or so, but then it's like more to just get a training session out of it. Of course I wanted to show sort of run fitness, but run like 30 something, which was okay, but it was also like it's hard to. It doesn't feel like you're in a race when you're starting like 3 minutes behind the front. So some positives. The swim has been better. I think the run can get there. I feel I have an idea, or like we can get to where I need to be in 2 months' time by adding in more track sessions, longer track sessions, and just taking the risk. Like it's going to be. I guess there is a reason why when you go to the Olympics, you see that maybe 30% of the field they have some sort of run niggles that they haven't been talking about. Like they have some sort of pain, but they have just been keeping it to themselves because when going into a race like that, you're sort of trying to be on the line, and I guess we will have to go down that way as well. Like we have to be risking it a little bit in terms of how much case we are daring to put in now on the run over the next 2 months.
Okay. And on that, so where are you now from a body perspective? Because last time we talked, we mentioned that you sort of turned up to Tokyo with a bit of a niggle. How's the body feeling?
Now it's feeling surprisingly good. So I've been running quite a lot this week, and normally in the morning I'm feeling like I have to do like almost like 8 numbers with my feet like this, just to get them going before I'm standing on them. But now it's feeling like I don't feel a track session from yesterday as much this morning when I woke up, and I'm feeling less old compared to what I did like last year. So like the bones and feels better in the morning, and no niggles so far. So as long as I can stay injury free for the next 6 weeks or so, and then we can sort of from the last 2-3 weeks into the games we can sort of build on a fracture without getting it.
Yeah.
It takes doesn't it take like 4 to 6 weeks of overload to get a fracture? So
okay. And so how much run volume have you got at the moment? How much are you doing?
It's not necessarily just the total weekly case, but also like the case at a higher pace.
Yep.
So I guess we will try to stabilize at just over 100k per week, and to do more of them at a higher pace.
Yeah, and so breaking them up into smaller intervals so that you can keep that pace higher.
Or maybe do longer sessions, so I'm coming into the session with more fatigue, so I'm producing less lactate by the end of the session. So if I do some 2Ks in the beginning to get like the volume in, and then bring in some 1Ks, 400, and maybe bring it back to 2 or 3K in the end, I think can be a good mix.
Okay. Talk to that a bit, because people will be surprised by this. So bringing more fatigue in means lower lactate. Do you know why, or can you explain why?
I think it's better, the proper explanation is maybe better to ask Olav about, but I think it's because when you do training, like you are sort of changing sort of adapting the muscle fibers. So from having like more fast twitch type of skills, so like being able to produce quickly energy and quickly producing lactates, it gets transformed a little bit more into slow twitch.
Yep.
And when you're coming in with fatigue, the muscle fiber will have a little bit more of that skills to a slow twitch fiber, and that's going to be more efficient for threshold, but it's going to be maybe less efficient if you're going to do 1K all out, just 1K.
Gotcha.
So that's like one of the reasons why we often have a quite high volume going into a race. It's because we want to keep that sort of energy system at the right balance. Of course, we want to have enough tapering in order to feel good. But if you do too much taper, you will also transform your muscle fiber into more fast twitch, which will feel great the first half of the race, but then you will bunker the second half. So the same counts a little bit with the track sessions and like the training we're building up.
Awesome. You mentioned in race, you noticed that your tires are a bit too inflated. Obviously, it's a risk because you don't have the same amount of traction on the wet road, and you felt your back fishtail a little bit. What goes through your mind at that point? Is it just, geez, I can't crash here, or is it something else?
Like in a race in Cagliari, like which is, it's also 9 weeks from the games. You don't want to risk it massively, and especially after we had a crash in Yokohama where a few guys got like injured. So trying to keep it cool and sort of being aware that I would rather take the corners a little bit slower and then use a little bit more energy to catch up than taking the risk. And especially after having like slipped twice on the rear wheel. I thought I'm not going to risk it, but I'm just going to position myself nicely and then hopefully get through the bike course, and hopefully it's going to dry up a little bit. But it didn't for me. Like with the flat, I had to sort of ride by myself for the second half anyway. But it's more being aware of the situation, and you sort of have to race from that point.
Yeah, because worst case scenario there is actually a crash. It's not doing poorly, right? Because a crash and an injury means the games are a risk, right? And you can't train further. So it's stepping off the intensity a little bit makes a ton of sense there. On the run, what's your mindset going into that run? Is it let me run as hard as I can and see where I'm at? Because that's part of what you were trying to do, right? Is like measure yourself versus the Alex Yees of the world.
Yeah.
Is that the mindset, or is it like I can't really push here because I'm nowhere near? Because you're so driven by competition.
You're trying to put in a good performance.
Yep.
But it's like doing a 10K with a bib number on and doing it without a bib number on.
Exactly.
And when you start like 3 minutes down, you feel almost like you're running without the bib number on. Of course, you have the 8 stations and you have like you have like a loop to do, but you don't feel like you are in the race in the same way. So it's more like trying to put in a strong race, because what else is it to do? Like, I was flying home the next day, and then should I then do a hard session after the race, or like you have to do like the training session anyway? So I just did a hard 10K.
Yep. So
of course, like it's not like I tried to go as fast as I could in that race, but it's like
you can't. Even like the emotional, psychological components of this. The hurts more to lose, the people are doubting me, all that stuff that we've talked about already. Like that meaning, and that there's something else there that you draw on for an Olympic Games. You can't even probably run as fast now on a perfect day as you could in the Olympic Games, just based on like that. It's not the Olympics, right? That there is a difference there. So I think you're making a ton of sense here, which is, I tried my hardest. It's the maximum effort I could give, but you can't quite dig as deep, right? It's just not possible.
I think it's more... or I think you can always get that mindset. Like, I think it's important to train on that, like that you're actually finishing off the race with a strong last 2K, no matter which position you're running for. And I try to bring that in, no matter if I'm ending up in the second pack, and I'm trying to run for the best position from that pack, and trying to bridge up catch as many guys from the first pack as possible. I think that mindset, no matter if it's an Olympic game or smaller race, like, you do want to have that habit that you're actually switching it on when you're getting close to the end, no matter if you're sprinting for a 5th or win or a 10th place.
Yep, that makes sense.
Because it's like if you're doing push-ups and you're supposed to do 10, and if you do 9 push-ups, it's going to be way easier next time to only do 9 as well. But if you have that habit to always do 10, then it's just like a part of what you do. And the same is with running, like going hard the last 1K or 2K. It's like just a habit you have to put in, and that's how you do it. Morten is rocket fuel, as we call it. The 320 drink mix is, I think the first few times you're trying it out, like you really feel surprised how strong you will finish off the session. Like if you're going out for a long run and you start to ride with 2-3-20s in your bottle, you will feel the straight benefits by the end of the session, just because it takes a longer time until you're bunkering. Solid 160, it's a great addition to the supplement. It's like good to get something that's not just liquid, like when I'm out riding before a run session, if I want to have some quick snacks but giving me that energy, it's a great bar to get in. And also it takes a bit like more, it's more solid than just the drink mix. To benefits from a one-time code and to get 20% off your next order, check our show notes.
I like that a lot. Anybody I've coached would have a bit of a chuckle now, because I always talk to them about whatever happens, the last bit has to be as hard as possible.
Yeah.
Don't come jogging across the line, no matter what. So now you've got 8 weeks. How are you feeling about the Olympics? What are the thoughts? What are the feelings?
I would have preferred to have raced better in both Yokohama and Cagliari. I'm not gonna pretend that I was happy with those 2 races, but I still feel there is a way to beat both Alex, Hayden, and Morgan, and the French guys in the games. So I think if we use the next 8 weeks well, put in a lot of run training, high volume, high intensity, combining it all with the perfect mix, then I think I have like in my mind that there is like a way to replicate what we did in Paris.
So we talked last year was training soup. Is this year what is it? Training Red Bull now, the intensity and the volume, or is it something else?
The what?
So last year you said your training was training soup.
Soup.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of everything. Yeah.
And this
so
year
now it's more like I don't know. It's more like being on the edge here, like trying to balance around the table here. Like it's gonna be risky, but risk it for the biscuits.
Yeah.
Like we're not traveling to Paris to get a top 5 or top 10 or maybe even bronze. Like we're going there for the win.
Yeah. Walking the tightrope, living on the edge.
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean, what do you do after a race like those 2, right? You've had 2 races where I don't think you were happy, right? It sounds like that's the case, and I don't think anybody would have assumed you were happy. How do you mentally sort of switch over to the next week when you're in Yokohama, or 2 weeks time, or from Cagliari now it's like I've got 8 weeks. Obviously you have a plan in terms of this is the training I'm going to do, but what do you do to sort of cleanse your mind of that and sort of get over the race?
I feel the 2 races was a little bit different because in Yokohama I was just not good enough.
Yep.
While in Cagliari I got a flat. I'm not saying that. I guess I wouldn't have been good enough to fight for the win there either, but I would have been better prepared in order to be higher up on the result list than what I was in Yokohama. So from Yokohama, it's more like trying to figure out what have you done in training and what's required in order to be improving what's missing. And in Cagliari, it was more like being a little bit more pleased with how I felt in the race, before the race, and like I felt more on fire for that race than in Yokohama. But then not letting a puncture sort of destroying the mindset of, or the reflections of the race. So more taking like where was the fitness and what can we do in order to build on from there.
Yeah.
And also be pleased with if I'm getting a flat tire this year or puncture, it's good that it's happening in Cagliari and not in Paris.
Yeah.
Or in Kona.
That would be devastating. And so then you probably discuss that with Olav as well. It's like, hey, here's where I'm thinking we need to go with training. What do you think, Olav? How are we going to modify things? Is that what sort of the process was like, or? Yeah,
so it's both like in terms of like when we are sort of lifting the volume, if it comes from just one, not like just 2 sessions of lifting up the intensity, or if it's 3 sessions, and if you're doing something higher and harder, what do we then need to sort of pull back down on, and trying to build like a new structure for training week according like with swim, bike and run that we will sort of follow over the next 7 weeks, or going into Fontromeux and Cersei like at the sea level or in Switzerland before the games, and finding like a new plan, and then also what's the consequences of changing the training.
Yeah. And so if you can tell me, does it look like you're dropping back some bike volume to then run more, or are you not able to say?
Like maybe dropping back the threshold work. Like we will not be challenging it that much on the bike. Mm-hmm. Maybe only doing like 2 sessions of like intensity. I think still the volume can be in there. Like I think it doesn't hurt to do 3 or 4 hours rides, but it's more I don't need to challenge the LT1 or pushing up the LT1 for the whole duration of the ride. I can more like do a little bit easier intensity, and then just like being out on the bike and then having a little bit more energy for the ride, for the run.
Yeah.
And I think also putting in track sessions is going to bring back a lot of fitness. Yeah.
And so you'll do those at altitude as well, or only here at sea level?
No, both.
Both.
Like we're heading to Fontromeux, which is not really altitude. It's 700 meters. No, 1700 meters. And so I can basically do the same sort of intensity up there as I can do here.
Wow, that's a superpower in itself.
We've been to 2006 this winter, so it's like almost, which is 50% more than von Tromme.
Yep, no, I get it. I just was out of breath walking uphill in Sierra Nevada, so it's a little bit different. You've obviously got a stressful period coming up. 8 weeks to the Olympics. I know that you're shutting off a lot of the noise. You're doing a lot less of this stuff, a lot less, sponsor type stuff, really zoning in on the stuff that's important. What else do you do to try and, aside from eliminating the actual stress, what are you doing to de-stress? What are things you do to relax, or what are you doing to relax at the moment?
I try to be less on my phone, so be more disconnected from the social media. Like, it's so easy to just be like on Instagram and scroll through like for hours. So trying to be more awareness of my time there. And I try to be, sort of more where I'm actually are, and rather than being on the phone for most of the day. And maybe be less with like headphones on all the time, and just be like more efficient with the time and more structured.
I like that. I think Olav would probably be a fan of that as well, knowing him and the way he lives his life. So I think that's good. And so you're trying to be where your feet are. What's it like being in Bergen at the moment? I know you don't spend a lot of time here. You get a couple of weeks every so often. So what's it like being home for a bit?
It's always nice to be home when it's nice weather. So it's been good to do a little bit more training with Gustav as well. He's sort of on the way back. So had like a track session together yesterday, even though he didn't do sort of the same session as I did. He was jumping in and out, and we had a long ride the day before, so it's nice to be training a little bit more together and getting that back as well, and also to see that he's back into sort of a good mental space in terms of training. And it's nice to be home, like to have everything at one place and not have to deal with the luggage and just having what you traveled with, but actually to have like everything there.
Yeah. And when you're on the track with him now, given he's coming back, is it his job to lead all the reps that he's in? Is it
of course. Like no. Actually, like yesterday, I did some like 1Ks, 2Ks, and 400, and he was mainly doing 400s, and he joined for like 2 1Ks.
Yeah.
So for him now, it's more to be running a little bit faster than what he did on the session before. So it's not about the sort of the total what he did like 2 years ago, what the numbers he was reaching then, but more like in terms of getting the 1Ks a little bit faster to get that stress on his Achilles again and sort of get that stimuli.
Yeah. We talked previously, not on this podcast, but on in another forum, about something you'd left in your fridge, and you got home to something horrible in your fridge. Anything horrible that you'd left behind this time that you had to worry about when you got home, or is it all just an empty fridge?
Now it's just an empty. No, the thing is, when the fridge is empty, you have to buy in everything again when you get home. So now I have a full fridge with food and milk and what's normal to eat. But I think it was like early this winter, I was just like cleaning the kitchen and like looking at like there had probably 20% of the food were like run out of or on date like in 2021. I was like, okay, this is gone. I was planning to eat this tomato soup, but it's 3 years old. So I had surprisingly a lot of stuff that I probably bought in when I moved in 2019, and thinking that every household is probably supposed to have these spices like in the kitchen, and now it's cleaned up. So I think most of the food I have now it's eatable.
Very good. And do you enjoy being alone in your house? Because you live alone from what I understand, and you obviously spend so much of your year living in camps with other people, and yes, you have your own room, but you're not eating meals with everybody. It's not any of that. Is that something you enjoy, or do you prefer the company?
I think it's nice to be home by myself at times, because then also like you're looking forward to the social meeting point at training. And I think that's I think it's good when you're making the training the highlight of the day, because then you're also looking forward to it. You're turning up earlier to the session, instead of coming there in the last moment. And I think the mix is good.
Yeah.
But also to be on training camp where like you sort of, it's easier to see that, okay, the session starts in 20 minutes and everyone is getting ready for the session, and sort of feeling more the 24/7 regime.
Yeah. And you, I mean, we've talked about this already, is that you sort of really live and breathe triathlon in a way that perhaps Gustav doesn't quite live and breathe it as much. And so you're happy to be out of that environment rather than be in it and talking triathlon all the time, being around all the other triathletes and all that at, say, Sierra Nevada?
I'm not saying that I'm not thinking about triathlon when I'm home, but then it's more like you do it by yourself.
Yeah. And do you enjoy being able to cook at home? I find this stuff fascinating because it's, obviously some people love cooking, some people don't. That's not new and different, but you talked previously about how in Font you and Gustav cook dinners and it's really nice, whereas, in Sierra Nevada everything's cooked for you or you go out to the pizza place. So what's the story like at home?
I think it's nice to cook at home. Like, it's simple to cook some good salad or veggies or pasta, rice, chicken, salmon. It's normally the same it goes in, but it's nice and simple. But the main thing is that when you're having a kitchen, you can decide when you want to eat. It's not like you have to dial in your training for like lunch is from 1:30 to 2:30, and then you can't really put in the bike ride straight after the swim because then you will miss the lunch. So then it's better to be able to adjust the mealtime according to your training, and just to have like food in the kitchen and take some bread when it fits in, and sort of adjusting that rhythm easier. Yeah.
So back in Bergen, back on the old training grounds, is it something you enjoy training here? Is there something about, we talked about the weather already. We talked a bit about now training is a highlight of the day because you get to meet Gustav rather than spending your meals with Gustav as well. Do you enjoy physically being back in Bergen? Is it like, this is like what it was like when I was hungry and young, or is it just a nice change of scenery, or is it just familiar roads?
I think it's both. Like, it's especially this time of the year when it's basically sunlight, or it's bright the whole day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you don't have to be back home by 7 because then it's getting dark. Like, it's now getting dark like 10:45 in the evening, and it's not even dark. It's like it's still bright. So that's pretty nice. Like, you feel more energized when you have so much daylight. And as long as we can ride on dry roads at part of the ride, especially in the summer when the traffic is going a little bit down, then it's like a very nice place to be, like riding around the fjords. Like, we went towards an island outside of Bergen 2 days ago, and it is nice sceneries as long as you get outside of downtown, and we have the mountains, which is nice to run on. So it's and a lot of tracks as well for running. So it is a good place to do sport. Like, it's a very active city, and as long as we can get a little bit more days without rain, it would be perfect.
Yeah, I like that. That's very cool. And
it rains so much here in Bergen that the roads, they don't get slippery anymore, because they're so clean. So the issue is when you are used to ride on these roads and then you get to like Spain or Italy or France, where it's normally not raining that often, then those roads get way more slippery.
Yeah.
So then it's almost dangerous because we can't almost transform the skills from riding on the slippery road here or the wet road here to roads in Spain and Italy and France. Join the Centaur Tech membership clubhouse. You will get exclusive content, in-person and online events, partner discounts, and so much more. Apply to join at centaurtech.com/membership.
Very good. I like that. And so who's here with you aside from Gustav training? Is it just you two, or have you got some other training partners that you call in from back in the day? Or
No, it's mainly Gustav. There is some younger triathletes as well swimming in ADO, but they have their program, and then you have the guys from the national team who is following their program.
Yeah.
So it's more split than what it was before. It's been now it's more different programs, and probably a lot of egos around, so people want to do their own stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, and so are they all based here? Is this where the national program is based in Bergen, or is it?
There's no national program anymore. Like we used to have a base here, like in 2018 or 19. Then it was like a bigger squad, 10 or maybe 10 athletes. That was training together every morning on the swim and trying to do most of the sessions together on the bike or run. But now it's more split. So I'm doing my training with Gustav, and then trying to invite the younger athletes when it fits to do like a run together after the swim and stuff like that. But yeah, mostly they don't have the same program.
Yeah. And why do you invite them? Because we talked previously about legacy and what you wanted to bring, and you wanted to encourage these young guys. And we talked about how you were helping them a little bit, or talking to them in Sierra Nevada. Is that why you're inviting them, or are you inviting them because you want friends, like partners around, or what's the story?
It's more lasting, I think, like to get company for the sessions, and it's more joyful to train together than by myself all the time. So it's a little bit the same reason as why I started training with Gustav like 10 plus years ago. It's not because I wanted to create a legacy for him, it's more like because I wanted a training partner, and we both saw the benefits of training together, and he was sort of helping both of us. So it's the same, trying to hopefully give a little bit, sort of being able to help them a little bit, but also to get maybe 1 or 2% better back myself in terms of the quality on the training. So
yeah, and then the enjoyment, right? Because that's ultimately you guys have talked a lot about this, and so has Olav, is that like the enjoyment is key. You have to enjoy it. So and it's, I don't think anybody thinks that running solo is more pleasant than running with people.
Sometimes it's nice to just have your thoughts for yourself, but other times you just want to be distracted and have like a company to run with. Yeah. So that's like the beautiful thing with training. Like sometimes to just ride by yourself without music, just like listening to the nature, and sometimes you just want to hang on, but like in the back of the group and just focusing on the wheel in front, and be social. So you can basically do the same training, but it can be still quite different.
Yeah, and sometimes you stick a Gustav and you put the AirPods in, and then you do the training session with the AirPods in.
No. Normally I don't train with people with AirPods in. That's very, very few times. And the one time I got caught was like, my plan was to run by myself, but then we suddenly had to do like a group run because we were supposed to be filmed. So then I was suddenly having AirPods in while I was in a part of a group. But normally, when you are in a group, AirPods is not allowed.
And so we're here training. Are you here testing as well? Have you got testing coming up this week, or no?
Yep. So it's again swim, bike, and run testing next week from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we are leaving to Fantomme on Sunday.
Okay. And those testing days, I think people are very interested in them. We all know, we understand that you're probably getting some lactates done, going to VO2 max, testing thresholds, all that stuff. But you guys also talk about how tiring that is. And I don't think that's just because Olav's around and you're sick of him. I think there's something else there. How much volume are you guys doing on those days?
Like the intensity, or like the bike session itself is like 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And swim session is like 6K or something. It depends a bit on how well it goes. And the run session is just shy of 30K normally.
Oh, wow.
So there is like 3 days of pretty intensive sessions. It's basically you're going as hard as you can on the bike, then you're going as hard as you can on the swim, and then you're going as hard as you can on the run again. So you're having like 3 almost like races in one sense. Like you're tapering for those sessions as good as you can, and so intensity wise it's quite high, but the volume often for that week is going down a little bit.
Yeah. And do you do other training on those days? So you said Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I assume you test swim, bike, run, something like this.
Bike, swim, run.
Bike, swim, run.
But then we do like trying to keep like some easy training around. So I do a bike on day 1, and then I'm normally heading straight to the pool afterwards, so just to keep the feeling of the water. And then day 2, it's starting off with the swim test, and then I'm getting like an easy bike or run in, and then the run session on day 3, and then trying to keep the swim and run afterwards. So I'm trying to sort of keep the rhythm of training and keeping the volume up, and as long as I'm able to refill with carbs and staying hydrated, then I think the body can tolerate a lot of volume at lower intensity and still be prepared to push when it's needed to.
Yeah, and I think the misunderstanding people might have there is that this testing, the reason you can recall it to me like that so vividly is because it's the same every time.
Yeah.
The easy training afterwards is the same, all that stuff. So for you guys, it's less about what that number is and more about how we're tracking and how we're trending. It's, am I going in the right direction? Are things improving? And we're standardizing this. It's in the same lab with the same equipment, and we've got the same training around it.
And also the interesting thing, like we've been doing this sort of testing for many, many years. So what we saw typically going into the games, as an example, when I won Tokyo, where that I came out of that race with a lower VO2 max than what I have been clocking in the lab before. So it's not just about chasing the highest number, but to understand how the numbers ideally should look like, and then we can sort of have a focus area on the, like focusing something on the training over the next couple of weeks, and then go back again into lab and see if we've been getting that response as we wish to get. And I think the fact that we're sort of stampling into lab, that often makes it easier to dare to challenge and to try something new, and not just do what we've done before. Like it's very easy when you train that you're just sort of replicating what's been done over the last season, the season before, instead of daring to find out like new ways to improve. Like maybe we should take down the volume on the bike and see how that's going to affect the bike fitness. Maybe over the next 2 tests it's going to be the same before it's dropping, or if it's going to be like consistent, like, and there's no reason to train too much more on the bike if the fitness doesn't drop. Then we can sort of bring down the volume. But if the fitness drops while we are bringing down the volume, then we need to keep it up.
Yeah, that makes infinite amounts of sense, particularly with the frequency of your testing, for lots of reasons, right? You can't completely taper, test fresh, and not do sessions afterwards because you test so frequently that you would be detraining for probably a quarter of the year at that rate. Mm-hmm. If you want to tinker with things, you need to test it, right? And so you guys are doing that, and it allows you. You know, most people would be lucky to test 4 times a year. I'd say most athletes, they go probably once a quarter, they go get testing. It's very low, sort of just do it and they're done. You guys are using it as a check-in as well along the way. That's absolutely fascinating to me, and I think to the listeners as well. And probably it's part of what is so interesting about your training and your groups. Is the testing, not so much testing, but is the tinkering with new methods and daring to try? I know it's something that excites Olav, that real pursuit of peak human performance. How does that sit with you? Is it something you're enjoying as well, thinking about it, talking to Olav about it?
I think it's more, I think like it brings up the discussion and how we can improve stuff, you know, instead of just being happy with the improvements and then trying to replicate what we did the year before again. Like we're always getting up like new ways of trying to see if we can improve. Like it's more like understanding how the body is working, and that's going to give us a better understanding of what might be possible to change and how that might be able to change your fitness. So it's a little bit like the more knowledge you have, the more you realize you don't know. The same is with testing. Like the more you're testing and understanding about the body, the more you sort of start thinking that there is still place to improve.
Yeah. Is it the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? You start off, you think you know a lot, and then all of a sudden you realize you know nothing. Yeah. And then you slowly come back up and realize maybe I know a little bit.
So now we are here, like we feel we know nothing again, and we have hopefully on the way back up to understand more.
That's awesome. That's exciting for everybody involved, I think.
Thanks to Plasma-Aid for sponsoring the episode. Plasma-Aid caught me a little bit with surprise earlier this winter when I started using it, and I realized that suddenly we're having a jump of 10% of my oxygen uptake by implementing Plasma-Aid in my daily nutrition. I use Plasma-Aid before my hard sessions and also every evening. Over the last few years, I've been feeling more like stiff in the morning when I'm waking up, but I do feel like this morning I feel better when I'm waking up. Like I can sort of stand easier without knee pains, and I'm less stiff in the morning than what I was before after starting using Plasmid in the evening. Experience the benefits yourself by using the code TRI20, that's TRI20, to get 20% off your next purchase. Check the show notes below for the code.
So this is going to be the last episode we have with you alone. Listeners will have heard the first 2 episodes with you. This is the third one. We'll then have 3 with you and Gustav, and then we'll have Gustav's episodes because of Rule 40, which we'll explain to listeners at some point around Olympic blackout. So this is the last time they get to hear from you before the Olympic Games. It's probably the last time I'll hear from you before the Olympic Games. What are your thoughts around the Olympics in terms of how the race will go? Do you think it's going to be just, I mean, the reality of racing these days is it's pretty much full throttle from the start, right? That's the reality.
So let's take the expect that it's going to be a swim.
Yep.
Even like that's now up on the discussion table now, whether the water quality is not good enough.
Yep.
But let's say it's a swim. Then I think already now, like Mark DeVay, I think is not selected. One of the greatest swimmer we're having in short course, so he's normally leading out of the water, either him or it's Vincent Luis. And Vincent is even like questionable if he's going to be selected because it's between him and 2 other guys, and it's 2 slots available. So if those 2 guys is not there, the swim pack is going to be affected, I guess. Like the clear leader in the water is not going to be there. So that might create like a more sort of a group of maybe 2 or 3 guys in front that's sort of bringing up more guys. So it's not like just one line of swimmers in the water, which might make it a little bit easier for myself to be near the first pack. It's favorable current down, and it's like you're swimming against the current back up again, which is affecting the pacing strategy a little bit. I think it's easier to accelerate in the field on the way in downstream current than it's in upstream, I think. Positioning in the river is going to be crucial in terms of how close you are to the wall underneath the bridge, because if you are like in the middle of the poles under the bridge, you're going to have a lot of strong current, versus if you're sort of going as close as you can to the edge, where it will be a little bit less. So those sort of learnings from the test event is going to be important. But hopefully I will be sort of coming out of the wall like I've been this year, in and near the first pack, and hopefully Alex and Hayden is going to be a few seconds behind, and I can sort of make it into that top 15, 18 guys and work together and come off the bike with a lead. But I guess it's going to come together, and it's going to be a running race where it's required to run maybe 29 flats, 28.50, depends how accurate the course is been measured, but like around 29 flats. And I think it's going to be important to have a strong final kick, and hopefully I can bring back something that I had in Tokyo to be able to find that gear for the final lap. But yeah, like it's a lot of guys who's running faster than what it was in the previous Olympic cycle. So just if you're using the course in Yokohama as an example, it's more people running close to the split that I was doing 3 years ago. Then I was basically, I think I had the fastest run split by 29:30, and now that's sort of the new norm. And it's going to be tight, but it's going to be important to have that final kick, I think, as well. And a lot of people probably going to feel they want to risk it, like it's an Olympic game. So you will see that people will hang on for dear life for as long as possible and hope for some sort of special things is going to happen to them for the last final 5K. So you will see people probably blew up a little bit more. People will take a little bit more risks. And I guess there will always be some favorites who will sort of crack under pressure in the game. So yeah, it's quite open, I would say. Like you have Alex and Hayden as the clear favorite maybe in many people's eyes, but still they haven't won World Series title over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and you gave us a bit of a preview in a previous episode of some people to watch, and that was helpful to me as somebody who doesn't watch a lot of Olympic distance to then watch Yokohama, and I was like, oh, those were all the guys that Kristian talked about.
Yeah.
So your triathlon nous is certainly there, unsurprisingly to most people.
I think I said Australia is going to be strong, didn't I?
You did. Previous one. You called Hauser.
Yeah, and then you have even Luke coming through. Luke William getting third, first World Series podium. So that's also probably the same as happened in Norway in Olympic sports. Like we had awful games in 2012 and in 2016, and then you're having okay, we have to step it up a few games, and then you're getting that hunger within the team and within the country, and that's probably happening a little bit within Triathlon Australia. Like they came into Tokyo Olympics with big sort of maybe confident, but they were the only team who had 6 spots for the games, and they were sort of the best team coming into the game, and they were maybe the worst team going out from the game. And that's combined with having the Olympic Games coming to Australia in a few years' time is going to sort of give a lot of new athletes, younger athletes, that motivation to step it up and to dare to dream.
Yeah, I remember before the Sydney Olympics, you may not, you're a little bit younger than me, but I remember before the Sydney Olympics when triathlon was debuting, I had some friends in those sort of squads, and it's cool to see what a home Olympics does for a country in terms of kids dreaming, and even kids post-Olympics, and what that means for them having seen somebody at a home Olympics. So I very much understand what you mean there.
So France will be dangerous in 4 years' time.
France will be very dangerous. Well, France will probably be dangerous in 12 years' time.
Yeah.
Because you'll have the kids who are 8, 9, 10 now watching their home Olympics going, wow. You just mentioned then, we'll assume there's a swim. Let's talk about that for a second. This is something that's fascinated me because this is a foreseen circumstance. Obviously, last year in the test event, they tested the water quality, which was apparently good enough for you all to swim in. Many people got sick after that, maybe as a result of it, we don't know. But how do you feel about... and then for the Paralympics, obviously the Paralympic test event the next day, the water quality wasn't there. So would you be happy without a swim? Would you feel like it's not a triathlon? What are your thoughts around it?
I think everyone will be feeling disappointed, and it's going to be a big failure for the sport if it's not a swim in the Olympics. And it's a big failure for World Triathlon and for IOC, and then it's someone should take their hat and.
Yep. And so would you prefer to have the games move to a different location, like the Olympic triathlon event move to a different location so that you can swim, or stay in Paris and then have no swim?
No, I think it's better to have a swim, bike and run in a triathlon. So, but I guess it's the Olympic Games. You can't just change the course the week out. It's not an amateur sport.
Yeah.
They have to treat it like it's a professional sport and dealing with professional athletes, so they can't just change the course a week out either. So, yeah.
So sort it out is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can't say too much. Well, I can speak. The answer is sort it out because you can't move the goalposts. I mean, you've just spoken.
It would be a big failure for the whole World Triathlon and for everyone involved in the triathlon in the Olympics and the LOC in terms of if the swim is getting cancelled.
Yeah, I agree. I've got a feeling it's going to go ahead regardless of water quality. I think there'll be something that happens and the water quality will magically be fine. But
also as athletes, we have to be able to trust the water quality measurements that's been done in the courses.
I agree.
As an example, I think a lot of athletes, they now tend to avoid going to swim fam. As an example, they might just go there and look at the course rather than swimming in the water because they think that they have maybe seen too many times where apparently the water is supposed to be safe, but they still get sick after the race. So in Yokohama, I saw it was a couple of athletes who just came down to the pontoon without being dressed in the wetsuit, but just in cycling gear and just looking at the swim fam and swimming in the pool until the race, simply because of the water quality at the venues we are racing at. And if the athletes doesn't trust the measurements done by the World Triathlon, then it's a
problem. You can't trust
it. It's a problem,
it.
yeah.
That's the thing, right? You need a level of trust that you'll have a safe course, and that may mean the bike course needs to be safe from a cornering point of view, or there's lots of talk in Yokohama about the shape of that area where the crash was. You need to make sure that the water quality is safe. You need to make sure that the spectators are kept away from you in negative ways, as we see in things like the Tour de France. So there's all sorts of things that you need to be confident that you just turn up on the day and execute. Yeah. But you also just spoke with an incredible level of depth about tactical aspects of the course. And so they can't just move it, right? Because I'm sure if I asked you questions, I just asked you, you just gave a great recount of the swim and being close to pylons and these sort of things. I'm sure if I asked you about the bike, you'd say the same thing. You'd say, oh, this corner needs this and I need to be in this position on that corner.
But just if you put in a hill on the bike course, that's going to change the dynamic as well.
Yep.
And that's sort of you're having the set of rules and you have to follow. In the same way when you're comparing PTO races where it's 20 meters drafting versus Ironman where it's only 12 meters of drafting, that's impacting the way you're racing, because you can be closer on the bike in Ironman, which I think is a good way tactically wise in one way, because you can play with the other athletes a bit more. And the same counts for a race where it's like cobblestones. Like they just apparently they changed the course from what we did in the test event. I haven't been able to see the course yet that we're going to do in Paris.
No,
because they changed some section of the cobbles. Because apparently people were scared of getting injured of running on the cobbles, but I haven't seen the updated version of the course yet. So just stuff like that makes like you wonder what the people in charge of the Olympic course is. Yeah,
this is madness. So wait, people are more worried about running on cobbles than cycling on cobbles. Like I've never cycled on cobbles. Like I have a little Dutch commuter bike, but like. In my take here is that cobbles are much more dangerous to ride on than to run on. Is that fair to say or not?
It's not dangerous at all. Like it's like not the cobbles you're having in Paris. Like it's sort of soft. Maybe it's a little bit more risky to run on the ones they're having in Paris-Roubaix. Like they're really, you can twist your ankles on. But like if you find it too wobbling to run on carbon shoes on cobblestones in Paris, then run with less foam. Yeah. It's optional which shoes you're running in. Like we are 2 months out, and I've heard the course has been updated, but I haven't seen the updated version. So that's apparently it's a little bit more tarmac next to the river instead of cobbles on Champs-Élysées. Or
that's the cycling.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's the running.
No, I think they're moving a little bit both of it.
Okay. Fascinating. Wow. Okay. Well, this is news to me, and I'm sure it's somewhat news to you as well. I'm interested to see this. I assume you get to go out on the course and do some course familiarization the last couple of days.
2 days out, I think there is like a small window. So,
Very interesting. Well, I think fortune favors those who are prepared in that respect. You still need to turn up fit, and then you need to have a good tactical now. So I think you'll be doing pretty well for yourself in those concepts. So I won't take any more of your time today, Kristian. It's been great. Really appreciate you. I'm sure the listeners are going to appreciate you as well. I'll take the opportunity for all involved behind the scenes to wish you luck in the Olympics as well. Not that you'll need it, but we wish you luck, mate. We hope it goes well for you, and hopefully the next time we hear from you, you'll be a twice Olympic gold medalist.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much, mate. And that's it for another episode of the Norwegian Method podcast. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week, where we'll have an episode with both Kristian and Gustav. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do share it. Share it with a friend. Share it on social media. It does help us to grow. Rate the podcast, please. It helps us on whatever player you're listening to. And of course, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet done so.
The Norwegian Method.